Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at CoreWeave. It is time for another update, and today we'll be discussing the structure that has formed here to the upside since the local low within the wave 2, as well as the probabilities of this movement to the upside to actually form something more meaningful. But before we get there, I would like to go quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new. And here we have been tracking this idea of a larger 1-2 setup actually ever since the first video on this chart. We were probably around this time frame where the momentum has only begun accelerating to the downside, I believe, and we were looking for this exact area of support for the retracement within the wave 2 to get to, when we had here the levels between the $97 all the way down to the $48.5 level. And as we pushed lower, we were considering a possible bottom within this correction in wave 2. Here, it was possible to have already bottomed in this area, even here actually. But then, since we failed to hold here an internal area of support for continuation higher, and we have basically broken quite significantly below, we were heavily preferring actually a larger reset of this overall larger wave 2. Now, since this happened, we are now at a point that this larger correction has already happened. We have a possible bottom even within the scenario of an extension within this wave 2. We can actually even look for the ideal target of the wave C, and that would be the 100% extension of the wave A. Well, we have gotten there. We have achieved the ideal target. We haven't pushed much past that. We have gotten basically to the 61.8% retracement, the inverse of the golden ratio, where we have found here a more significant reaction to the upside and possibly a more significant bottom within this larger wave 2. And it was so significant actually that it didn't even allow the fifth wave to extend to normal levels beyond the actual bottom within the wave 3, but now we actually have a full structure within this interpretation in a wave C in a 5-wave move to the downside. And even though further extensions are still possible, there is no reason to believe that this wave 5 cannot extend any further. We also have a decent movement to the upside, where in the previous video I actually provided you an area of resistance to track that would signal, if broken, that this structure would more likely break out, and that if we manage to break even beyond the beginning of this wave 5, it would be a signal that this structure would not extend any further to the downside. Sure, it could be a reset of the larger wave 4, where we may have a larger ABC movement or even a larger WXY, even a different pattern, but ultimately it would not be within a continuation of this fifth wave. Now, we did get here a brief break, but unfortunately it is not necessarily significant enough for us to consider it impossible, or even much less probable, that this structure could still extend to the downside within the orange interpretation of a larger ABC structure in the wave 5. And at the same time, we have actually also failed to hold here the relevant areas of support for continuation within a 5-wave move to the upside within this area. Surely enough, since the previous video, we did manage to extend a little higher within this wave 3, but all this really does is actually allow this area of support to drift higher as well, and consider that we actually found failure for this overall correction within the wave 4 much earlier than just in the last couple of days of trading. We actually had a decently sustained break within this area, but in the end we need to be aware that we did not get a 5-wave move to the upside, so we did not get a strong signal that this structure is to be extended with high likelihood in a larger movement overall. Now, with all these ideas in play, we are going to focus here once again on the larger area of resistance in yellow. It is still relevant. Again, a wave 4 reset is possible, and then that is only really if we manage to break above the beginning of this fifth wave to the downside. And then internally we are going to focus on the resistance area that can still prove actually difficult to push through in the orange interpretation. As we can see here, we did find some initial support even at a 78.6% retracement. We tested from above and we found some initial support, but nothing too significant. We found further support at a 61.8% retracement, but each time, maybe not the first time, but here we then tested from below, we pushed lower, we tested from above, we pushed lower, we tested from below once again, and now we could very easily see further extension lower. Now, in such a case, I would still allow a larger structure to unfold, in which we could be tracking a larger 5-wave move to the upside within a leading diagonal. But I do have to warn you, this cannot be used as a reliable trade setup. This is more of a hopium scenario that this structure would find a bottom sooner rather than later, and that it can form a larger initial 5-wave move to the upside that would allow this overall larger pattern to look for a reliable structure, at least in the long term. Yeah, if we manage to form here within this structure in a wave 1 in an ABC movement to the upside, we have here a possible ABC correction within a wave 2, and then we get an ABC in the wave 3, ABC in the wave 4, and ABC in the 5th wave. We would eventually form a larger 5-wave structure to the upside that could eventually allow for an internal area of support. Yeah, from a larger time frame perspective, we have this larger area of support within which we actually are right now quite deep. It is very interesting already. But then if we manage to form here an internal 5-wave move to the upside, we may have an internal wave 2 correction that would be even more interesting. And that will be the actual trade setup that we are going to look for. That will be the actual opportunity that is of interest to us. And in such a case, we can track here an area of support even for this interpretation for the wave 3. Still to follow between the levels at the $77.5 level all the way down to the $68.3 level, where a break below the 78.6% retracement, if it is managed to be a sustained break, would be a significant signal that this overall pattern would be easily expected to unfold in a more direct fashion to the downside. Yeah, much more likely to play out in the orange interpretation if we don't manage to hold here the $68.3 level and we get a significant break below it. Or then a break below the beginning of the wave 1 would be a complete and full invalidation. Yeah, that would be a formal invalidation of any idea of a potential 1-2 setup within this area. But now, even as we track here a possible reversal to the upside, I am actually also tracking in this movement to the downside a potential 5-wave move that could still be unfolding. That would be also a signal that, yeah, even if we don't get necessarily below the 78.6% retracement, but we form here a 5-wave move to the downside, it would be a warning sign that this structure, after a 3-wave correction, is expected to form an additional 5-wave move to the downside. And while this is on a very small time frame and it is not necessarily a high reliability area to look for trade setups or opportunities, it is still interesting to be used for a potential resistance area, or really a path that we could look for a signal, yeah, that we may have even bottomed within the wave 2. For example, if I am tracking here something like a 1-2, and then this would be a 3rd wave down, this would be also a larger diagonal structure, and then we manage to break above the resistance levels that we would have here for a wave 4, it would be a signal that this structure is no longer expected to form a 5-wave move to the downside. In such a case, it is much more likely for this white interpretation that would allow a more direct push in a 3rd wave to the upside to work out, and it would make the interpretation in orange less likely. Now, it won't necessarily be impossible. We are always looking for the 5-wave move that would signal to us which pattern, which direction of the trend is expected to continue, but right now we don't have such a movement developed just yet. Now, within this area, as we can already see, we have some divergences here. We have formed a lower low while still managing to form a slightly higher low on the RSI, and this could be a signal to us that we have here something like a 1-2-3, or even potentially a 1-2-3, but in the end it would be a very similar pattern. We can actually even check here internal extensions, but yeah, basically we would be looking here most likely either for a 3rd wave to be completed as a 1-2-3, or in a 1-2-3 where the 3rd wave would actually be expected to continue further. Now, in either scenario, we would have a very similar area of resistance to be tracked for us, and we will be tracking this in the orange interpretation, and we will be looking here with interest for a break of the wave 4 area of resistance that would be here at the levels between the 23.6% retracement, and that would be actually here at the $76 level. And let me remove this from the background for a moment, but yeah, here we are tracking the $76 level all the way up to the 61.8% retracement at the $80.5 level, where a break above the 61.8% retracement would be a signal to us that this structure is not going to form a 5-wave move to the downside with the highest likelihood. Yes, we are talking about probabilities. Other scenarios could still technically work out, but yeah, nothing too reliable that would allow us to track with high probability a continuation in a larger wave C within this area. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.